The Fantasy Skirmisher.
Hello everyone, this is Nevin and welcome back to the Fantasy Skirmisher. This episode is a prelude to a 4-scenario solitaire campaign I wrote called The Eye of Fatima. At the end of the campaign, I will post it on BoardGameGeek in the Frostgrave 2nd edition page. The Eye of Fatima evolved from a single one-off scenario I wrote in 2018 called Supply Run, which has been renamed to Caravan of the Dead, and then it featured gnolls instead of cultists as it does now. In anticipation of Perilous Dark being released, I decided to expand the scenario into a full campaign. I then sat on it until after the 2nd edition was released in case I needed to do any further editing. Inspiration came from many sources. My campaign uses cultists named the Open Hand and were inspired by the Illuminati in popular culture and also in Indiana Jones. Their name was inspired by one of the fictional Hackmaster RPG groups, the Black Hands, in the excellent comic Knights of the Dinner Table, which is published by Kenzer & Company. When pondering a cool-sounding name for the relic, the song Eye of Fatima by Camper Van Beethoven came to mind. The last scenario takes place in a dungeon, and it is naturally lit by small holes and fissures in the sides of the mountain to the outside. This was inspired by my family trip to Switzerland back in 2019. Mount Pilatus, not far from Lucerne, has walkable tunnels dug into it, and they are lit by holes dug out through the sides of the mountain. These fissures also explain how creatures such as rats and ice toads were able to get into the sealed dungeon. The idea of searching bodies came from my favorite video game, Elder Scrolls V: Skyrim. So now let's go ahead and introduce the Warband. Starting with the front row on the left, we have our wizard Cherrybert the Red, along with his apprentice Morkant Drustin. They are elementalists. Then we have Ode Coinsack, who's a treasure hunter. Then Thomas Middleton, archer. Sigismund Floyd, man-at-arms. And then we have Joan of Rivers, who's an infantryman, or I should say infantrywoman. Then on the left, on the second row, is Phineas Simpleton, who's a thug. And Alaric Veller, also a thug. Then Tom Bumblefinger, who's a thief. As is Rob Robertson, who is also a thief. Now let's review their spells. In the Elemental School, we have Elemental Hammer, Elemental Bolt, and Wall. Then I chose Fleet Feet, Enchant Weapon, Leap, Heal, and Control Undead. Now let's review the campaign instructions. The Eye of Fatima uses the following sequence of play. First is the Wizard phase, then Creature phase 1, and that's where any wraiths on the table will activate, followed by the Apprentice phase, then Creature phase 2, and that's where all cultists activate, then any creatures other than wraiths. Finally, we have the Soldier phase. The campaign uses the closely connected scenarios rules, which is found in the Perilous Dark supplement on page 65. The exception is that if your wizard's health is ever reduced to or below 0, the campaign ends in failure. Then you would read a quest failed paragraph at the end of the campaign booklet. So the closely connected scenario rules are as follows. First, you roll for survival as normal. Figures that would normally miss a game instead start the next game at half of their normal health, rounded down. All other figures either heal 6 lost health or heal up to half of their starting health, rounded up, whichever is better. Then you calculate experience normally and level up as allowed, and you roll for treasure normally. Items can still be placed in the wizard's vault, but nothing can be bought or sold. Items can be redistributed among the Warband members. No new soldiers or apprentices may be hired during this campaign, and each spellcaster may attempt to cast a single out-of-game spell before the next game. If the spellcaster has the heal spell, like our wizard does, they may attempt this as their one out-of-game spell. Now, As far as treasure and supplies, they do not impede movement in this campaign. And you use the creature rules that's also found in Perilous Dark on page 14. Non-cultist creatures will move toward and or attack a cultist if it is the nearest figure. Cultists will ignore other creatures unless they are in base contact with those creatures. And then you add a Tome of Murmurs to your wizard's starting equipment, which uses 1 slot. I also have 2 optional rules. The first one is characters can spend 1 action to search a dead cultist or zombie. So what you would do is replace killed cultists and zombies with a token. After the body or token is searched, you remove the token from the board. And then there's a table where you roll d20 and you can either get nothing, have a few gold crowns. There's also a chance you can get a potion of toughness, which gives you +1 armor, or a potion of healing, which restores 5 health. So that's incentive, I think, enough to search bodies. The other optional rule is something I covered in a previous video, and that is the challenge coin that was made for members of the New York City Frostgrave Club. And of course, you could use any type of coin to use as a challenge coin. So please refer to that video, but these coins serve a game function. So this is once per game, not scenario, but once per game, you may use that coin and place it on the table to re-roll 1 die. And this is known as a fate roll, and it's kind of similar to the same mechanic in Talisman 4th edition. And the player must accept that second roll if you use the challenge coin. And that's it. We're ready to start the campaign. Scenario 1 is called No Grave Left Unturned, so stay tuned, and thank you for watching the Fantasy Skirmisher. Bye-bye.